Hey there, this is Dr. Gary Pepper, and this is Metabolism 123. And this is the second part of a series on adrenal disease. And we'll be talking about adrenal insufficiency, which is a topic of great interest and some controversy. In its more advanced form, adrenal insufficiency can be life-threatening, but could there be a milder form of adrenal insufficiency causing fatigue and exhaustion in everyday life? That's being called adrenal fatigue, obviously, but the medical community is very much against that possibility, though after doing extensive research on my own, I'm much more open-minded to that possibility, and we'll be reviewing that information towards the end of this video, so please hang around for that. And for those of you who are marathon runners or other avid exercise individuals, you might want to think about the possibility that in highly trained athletes, which is a study behind me we'll be talking about, the adrenal function may be abnormal, and that could be affecting you. So that could influence how you approach your training and your lifestyle. So why don't we just hop right in? And then thanks for watching. By the way, if you would subscribe and put a like on this channel, that will help us continue to be able to provide you with this kind of insightful information. Thanks. So on the other side of the spectrum, adrenal insufficiency, what kinds of symptoms can you expect? Well, I mentioned before low blood pressure with CF cortisol. You can also experience unexplained weight loss, extreme fatigue, darkening of the skin, which is rare, but it's related not to the cortisol effect, but to the effects of low cortisol on your pituitary gland. It's a little bit more complicated. Mood disturbances are common with both high and low levels of cortisol. Low levels of adrenal hormone like cortisol, but also aldosterone is important here. You can have excess amounts of potassium and low levels of sodium. And hypoglycemia is also associated with low adrenal function. Now, I mentioned several times already that without our adrenals, without cortisol, we couldn't survive. But what about more minor disturbances of the adrenal gland? Do they exist? If they exist, how could that be affecting our daily health? That is a bit of a mystery, I think, still in this day and age. There's a lot of controversy about whether there is a intermediate loss of adrenal hormone, which could result into something we know or is being termed adrenal fatigue, but more about that in a minute. So what causes adrenal insufficiency? Well, the most common cause is what we would refer to as Addison's disease, which is where the immune system attacks our own adrenal gland. Infections can impact, including fungal infections can cause the adrenal to be destroyed. Internal bleeding, which is more common in people on blood thinners, can cause hemorrhage into the adrenal gland. Radiation to the abdomen and abdominal structures can destroy the adrenal gland. Certainly, surgery can cause destruction if, in some cases, people have their adrenal glands removed. Medications can interfere with the adrenal function. One or more of the immune types, the new types of immune medications that are being used to combat various cancers, one of which I can think of is Keytruda, can cause adrenal dysfunction. Any disease of the pituitary gland, tumors, hemorrhage, radiation can cause destruction of the pituitary, which can then lead to adrenal problems. And one area which is not an ambulatory problem of everyday people, but something that occurs during septic shock may be that the adrenal glands themselves turn off. Now, I mentioned a personal side to this story. in 1977, when I was an intern, a case was admitted to our service of a young man who was blacking out, had unexplained weight loss, had episodes of low blood sugar. While in the hospital, we found he had high potassium. His wife related that she noticed that he was getting freckles, which he never had before, and he had very pale skin, and just generalized weakness. Well, fortunately, we were able to make the diagnosis of Addison's disease, that is the immune destruction of the adrenal glands, and he began cortisol replacement therapy and made a total recovery. And it was this case, which seemed so mysterious at first, which had such a happy ending, which was the critical point in my career that got me started in endocrinology. Now, as I mentioned before, could there be a milder form of adrenal insufficiency? And there is a long-standing debate whether such a thing exists, and it's been called adrenal fatigue. Now, I have to admit, up until fairly recently, I was also quite skeptical. I didn't really even pay much attention to the possibility. But as I've been thinking about it and researching, I found some really interesting stuff I'd like to share. But I also want to point out, again, the widespread feeling in the medical communities that this does not exist. For example, the Mayo Clinic website states there is no evidence to support a disease entity of adrenal fatigue. And the Cedars-Sinai website also calls it a medical myth. So we're delving into an area that gives doctors a big pain. So my concern is maybe had the experts been too quick to shut the door on this possibility. And there we go, shutting the door in one of our favorite TV series. Anyway, so let's keep going here. Keep seeing Joey there. Okay, so multiple studies show abnormal adrenal responses in cases of people who have been selected for evaluation of extreme fatigue. Now, among that 58 studies that were reviewed, 7 of the studies showed abnormal circadian rhythm of cortisol measured in the saliva. 2 studies showed low DHEA levels. 2 studies show low cortisol levels in the morning when they should be quite high. And 1 study showed low ACTH and cortisol levels in response to mental stress. So I consider that worthy of a second look. Now, looking further into this topic, we came across very interesting findings in what is called overtrained athletes. These are athletes who have pushed their bodies to extreme limits over and over again, day in, day out. And what was found was that the adrenal function in these individuals was impaired. Now, it was impaired in contrast to healthy, highly trained athletes who appear to be functioning at a higher level than normal. But what this suggests to me is that something's going on here. I mean, if highly trained athletes who overdo it can have disorder of the adrenal function, well, maybe your everyday person who's under a lot of unusual stress, is not sleeping, is not eating, is losing weight, has extreme mood problems, could that be sufficient in the average individual to result in defects in the cortisol adrenal function? And could that just exacerbate their underlying problems? I think personally, as an endocrinologist, as a physician, I would think that it's a high possibility that that could be happening and that it really deserves more serious attention. So basically, I'm going to leave with that in mind because I'd like to do another video slideshow podcast on this topic as more information becomes available. And I think if you have interest in the adrenal and how it might be affecting your health, I'd advise you to keep watch at metabolism.com. That's my website. Or here on YouTube for additional videos like this. And don't forget, please subscribe to this Metabolism 123 channel. That's my channel. Or visit www.metabolism.com to see our audio podcasts. And we also have an artificial intelligence app for people, which is free to use, which can help answer your questions. So it's a good deal, I think. So give it a try. And we'll be seeing you soon. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks again. Bye now. The contents of this video podcast are for educational purposes only. And if you really have some concerns about your health or medical issues, please consult with your own healthcare provider.